Hello, my friends. This is October the 9th. This is End Times Analysis. I'm Pastor Jeff. Get a cup of coffee, take a seat, and let us reason together. We just finished Psalm Ezekiel 38, and now we are looking at Psalm 83. Yes, I know I'm supposed to go to Ezekiel 39, but because of due to circumstances beyond our control, uh, it seems like events kind of necessitated me to do this one first. So we're going to be looking at Psalms 83, and I will read it for you, or at least the first part, which we're going to go over tonight. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Now, remember, we talked about Gog. He had come to take a spoil. Here they've come to wipe out the nation. Their name will be remembered no more. For they have consulted together. Once again, Gog did that with his alliance. With one consent, they are confederated against thee. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab, the Hagarites, Gebal and Ammon, and the Amalekite, the Philistine and the inhabitants of Tyre. Assur also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot. And then it says Selah, which means meditate. That is what we're going to cover tonight, or try to cover tonight. There is so much going on right now. This is the last of the ASAP, and I know I'm probably butchering the name, ASAPH Psalms. It has a subscription to the chief musician upon Gittha, which tells us it relates to a wine press. That was the wine press area. It speaks of unrelenting pressure. Israel in a coming day is in dire, desperate straits. She will be in a wine press. If you know anything about a wine press, you take the grapes and you crush them. You get them. That's what you get the juice out of. And this psalm has a lot of controversy. Anytime you start preaching or teaching out of a psalm, there's even a different way of what they call exegesis in it. That is going through and finding out the meanings of the words and how it is established and set up. So a lot of ministers will actually avoid the psalm unless using it as an introduction or something of that nature, because it is a different way of looking at it. But we're going to delve in it. We're going to go where they say angels fear tread. We're going to push through and see it and see how God helps us. There is widespread disagreement to the date of the psalm. Historical records, no single occasion when a combination of nations existed like this or a confederation like this. Somehow, some have related it, some theologians and historians have related it to the days of the great King Jeroboam II and to the events of the days of his contemporaries upon the throne of Judea. They equally, maybe Uzziah, others have it to the days of maybe the Maccabees. Still others have argued that it belongs in the days of good King Jehoshaphat. Probably in the days of Jehoshaphat, it comes close, but still not there. Some have even said maybe the King Ahab, when things were going on in Israel, and his infamous Queen Jezebel, how Jehoshaphat did enter an alliance with Ahab, and they went out against a Moab Ammonite coalition. But that's a coalition also joined, I think, by the Edomites. Yes, the Edomites. And the coalition wanted to bring an end to Judah once and for all. That was in 2 Corinthians 20:11. This alliance was so formidable that that also, of course, Jehoshaphat, when he came, alliance came against him. He sent out the worshipers first, and God set an ambush. But once again, this alliance like this, there has never been an alliance of this many nations of this type, and I call it the inner ring. In Ezekiel 38, they were the outer ring of nations. It talks about Put, which is what many people think is Libya, and Cush, Sudan, Ethiopia. Then Iran, or Persia, they call it, which is Iran. Then they call it Gomer, Misha, Tubal, Beth Tumagah. Then let's see, Beth Tumagah, yes, and from the uttermost parts of the north, and of course Rosh. and Gog, the chief prince. So, but this alliance, this nation is the inner ring. And some people say it's happening right now with the war, because we are seeing from Gaza, which would be Philistia, with that areas where the Philistines inhabited, from Hamas, that is coming against Israel, that had this surprise attack, beyond surprise attack. And yes, we are. This is an analysis channel, and we are going to get into that. How did this happen? What could have happened? And yes, you might even say, "Oh my goodness, Pastor Jeff, you're putting on your tinfoil hat." And sometimes you have to when you're doing analysis. You have to look at sometimes, well, could this have happened? Is there an extreme here? What does this look like? Because sometimes when you're in analysis, you have to compare. It's a compare analysis, compare this. You look at what has happened in the past and what could be happening in the future. How the past affects the future. If I continue on this line, where will I get? Like if I get on the Interstate I-95 in Miami and I go north, it shouldn't surprise me when I wind up in Georgia or South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. So when you're doing analysis, you put yourself at the point of the present, you look at the past, you see how it affects the past, you see where you are now, and then you continue it on with the trend. If we continue on, or how much could this trend break off into other areas? What we have to look at, this song was written by a man who was deeply aware of the isolation of the Hebrew people. They had no friends. The peril was great. There was a conspiracy and a coalition to wipe out the nation, and a large part of this coalition was family. Edom was their brother. Moab and Ammon were from Lot, were related to Abraham. There was a lot of individuals in here, but you would think that this would be the family would stick together, but no, they were out there to wipe the name of Israel completely off the map, so their name would be remembered no more. There was a pagan character about this. It was the pagans basically against the believers. And then remember what he said: keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace. Be not still, O God. For thine enemies make a tumult, that they make a great noise. They hate thee. They have lifted up the head. He uses two words for God. First, he calls him as Elohim. Then he uses a shorter form, El. Elohim is God in his creative powers. El is God in his concentrated power. God the omnipotent. This is a kind of God will be able to take care of Israel's foes, no matter how many, how mighty. When we looked about Ezekiel 38, we saw how mighty they covered the land. They were like a storm. Here, once again, Israel is very much outnumbered, and they're closer. This is actually a more dangerous alliance, even though they might not be as mighty or as numerous, but because they're so close, the logistics, if you know anything about military and tactics, an army travels on its stomach. If you can have your supply lines shorter, then that is a huge advantage. One of the reasons why Hitler lost in Russia, his supply lines got so stretched out. The same thing with Napoleon. Other people, when they have gone into places, when your supply line has gotten so stretched out, you can sometimes cut your enemy's supply lines, and they have to retreat. Mao Zedong was a past master at this against Chiang Kai-shek in the Chinese Civil War. Now, the psalmist asked God to break his silence. His enemies, the enemies of his people, were making a tumult, a roar, like the angry waves of the sea. There are times when the nations rage, and God does hold his peace. He's just waiting. God is not caught by surprise, but God has a timing in a way. God will sometimes bring us to the very edge of what we look at as the abyss. At the very edge where we look like all else has failed, and then all of a sudden, many times if you look at the Bible and how God works, look at his trends, he will get us to the very edge where we're crying out unto him, seeing for him, begging almost, God, oh God, help me. Now God knows what he's going to do. God has, I said, this is none of this situation in Israel right now with Hamas. Hezbollah has not joined in too much, a lot. There's been some rumblings in Lebanon, but they have not gotten involved. Because if we look at it in this place, we're gonna go over where a lot of these individuals are. Maybe not tonight, but we're going to go over where these individuals, like we can right now talk about Moab and Ammon and Edom. That's pretty much Jordan, in the Jordan area. There's three areas of Jordan where they did. Haggaites. Now that is something that I'm going to throw in there. That got people a little bit confused because that is what we saw from Haggai, who was an Egyptian. But wait a minute, they knew about Egypt at this time. Now, this is a trend that could happen. Proxies. Could Egypt could Egypt say, okay, we have a treaty with Israel, we can't attack, but what if we just kind of pull our people back from the border and just let these other individuals come in and say, oops, my goodness, how did they penetrate our border? Well, if Hamas could penetrate Israel with all the stuff they had, of course these individuals, these proxies, these the Muslim Brotherhood could do this, or some other terrorist group that's in Egypt. That's what I kind of believe is going to happen, because Egypt is not mentioned. But Haggai, she was a concubine that Abraham got when he went to Egypt. She was the mother of Ishmael, his first son. And we're going to talk about Ishmael. They were the primary tribe of the northern Arabia. They were a trader people. They sold Joseph into slavery into Egypt. They had great trade relations. They were small city states, confederated, all up and down there. So they were never a mighty, huge empire. But they were, I said, they were trading nations. Tyre, Sidon, that goes up into the old Canaanite area, in Lebanon, which right now is owned by Hezbollah. Goes up to Gibal, which many people think that could be the city of Babylos, which is a great trading thing, which also was Tyre. The ancient city of Carthage, who gave Rome so much trouble, was a colony of Tyre. That's how it works. Excuse me there. And of course, it talks about Ashur, Assur, which was the capital, which was one of the capitals of Nineveh, which was not my Nineveh. Nineveh was the other capital, one of the capitals of Assyria, principal city of Assyria. So Iraq could somehow be involved. I want you to think about this, my friends. I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I'm always going to give you the truth. You may not always agree with me, but I'm going to try my best to give you the best information I have. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, in the fog of war, the first victim, the first casualty is the truth. The United States just unfroze a uh, large sum of money. I think it was in the Korean banks, and led it to Iran. Led to Iran. They're saying that Hamas is using a lot of American weapons. Did they get these from Ukraine? Did they get them off the black market from Ukraine? Did they get it from Afghanistan? We don't know. We just know a lot of things are happening. There's a lot of players here behind the scenes. As I say, don't look at the man behind the curtain in the old Wizard of Oz. The curtain is being withdrawn because Mossad. How did the Mossad get caught up, which is the Israeli form of the CIA? How did the Mossad, one of the premier intelligence organizations in the world, many people consider better and more equipped than the old Russian KGB or even the CIA, how did they get caught so by surprise? Were they so focused on the outer rim, Iran, because Iran has been causing a lot of trouble, Iraq, Turkey, there's been trouble with Turkey, and maybe other places that they forgot the inner ring of nations because there hasn't been? Did they take these individuals for granted? Oh, they could never, yeah, they could shoot a few rockets. But the idea of them breaking through our fortifications, I want them to remember 1973 when Egypt, they had great fortifications in the Sinai Peninsula, and Egypt was able to move through. There is so much going on, and we're going to be learning about this. Like, once again, Edom. This is not the first time this area of Edom has gone against Israel. Matter of fact, one of the books of the Bible had a judgment on Edom, because as they caught, or as the refugees from Israel from after one of the Babylonian destruction of the temple was fled to Edom, they turned them back over. Obadiah. So you're seeing more and more of these nations coming together. Jordan, right now, Jordan has a peace treaty with Israel. Two, depending which demographic and expert you listen to, up to 2/3 of the population of Jordan considers itself Palestinian. So could Jordan say, whoops, oh my goodness, we're pulling people back from our border. Look at our border. When we, as our border has always had people passing through it. We have a huge border with Mexico. But if all of a sudden those border agents are pulled off to do administrative work, what happens to your border? What would happen if Jordan pulled back? We don't know. It hasn't happened yet. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could happen. When governments find themselves under great stress, oh my goodness, we're so close to destroying Israel. One of the first things when Israel was done, many people think, I should say, 80 Psalm 83 has already been fulfilled, is when 1948, when Israel declared itself a nation, a lot of nations came against them. That didn't work. I think once again, this is the war before the Gog Magog war. Israel has got to be able to handle the inner ring of enemies. Then the outer ring of enemies will come in, and then they'll be able to build their temple. Once all of the enemies are taken care of, because right now you can't, because if we try to build the third temple, war will happen. War will take place. So what are they doing? These things have got to take place. If you take the timeline and you look, if I have a lot of enemies and I do this, they will declare war on me. I'm not going to do that. Remember the old joke, doctor, it hurts when I do this? The doctor says, don't do that. That is what we have to do. And right now, this is a great place to stop. There's never really a good place to stop when you're talking about God's word. You can go on and on. It's so simple, a child can grasp it, but also so complex and multifaceted. Individuals have spent their entire life studying it. Well, until we see each other again, my friends, Maranatha.